So, you thought you understood Stranger Things? Think again. Season 4 just dropped the most insane plot twists, character deaths, and world ending revelations that completely shattered everything we thought we knew about Hawkins. I'm about to walk you through the absolute chaos that unfolded, and trust me, you're going to need to sit down for this run. But first, let me set the stage because this season didn't mess around. We're talking about a storyline so complex and twisted that it makes previous seasons look like children's bedtime stories. The writers essentially took every single character you've grown to love over the past 3 seasons and threw them into situations that would make your worst nightmares seem pleasant. And the best part? They're not even close to being done with us yet. Now, before we dive into the madness, you need to understand that this season operates on multiple levels simultaneously.
We've got our core group scattered across different locations, facing threats that are both familiar and completely unprecedented. The genius of this approach is that it allows the show to explore character development while ramping up the stakes to apocalyptic proportions. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Hawkins is experiencing something that goes way beyond the typical upside-down shenanigans we've grown accustomed to. This time, we're dealing with a supernatural serial killer who's systematically targeting teenagers in the most horrifying way imaginable. The victims don't just disappear or get dragged into alternate dimensions. Instead, they're found with their bones snapped, their eyes gouged out, and their bodies contorted in ways that defy human anatomy. The killer has a name, and it's not some random monster spawned from the Mind Flayer's influence. This entity is methodical, intelligent, and disturbingly personal in its approach to selecting victims. Each person targeted shares a common thread of guilt, trauma, and psychological vulnerability that this predator exploits with surgical precision.
What makes this threat even more terrifying is how it operates. The attacks don't happen in dark corners of the Upside Down or in hidden government facilities. They occur in broad daylight, in familiar locations, while the victims are surrounded by people who are completely powerless to help them. The killer doesn't need physical proximity to strike, making traditional methods of protection absolutely useless. Our beloved characters find themselves facing an enemy that challenges everything they've learned about survival in previous encounters. The rules have changed dramatically, and the cost of failure isn't just personal injury or temporary separation from friends. This time, the consequences are permanent and devastating in ways that will haunt survivors for the rest of their lives. Max becomes the primary target, and watching her friends desperately try to save her creates some of the most emotionally devastating moments in the entire series.
The group discovers that music can temporarily break the killer's hold on victims, leading to that absolutely heart-wrenching scene where they're frantically searching for Max's favorite song while she's literally floating in the air, her bones beginning to crack under supernatural pressure. But here's where things get really twisted. The identity of the supernatural predator isn't some random creature from the depths of the Upside Down. This is someone with a direct connection to Eleven's past, someone who's been orchestrating events from the very beginning. The revelation completely recontextualizes everything we thought we knew about Hawkins' supernatural problems. Meanwhile, Joyce and Hopper are dealing with their own nightmare scenario halfway across the world. Hopper's imprisonment in a Russian facility isn't just about surviving brutal conditions and fighting demogorgons for entertainment. The Russians have been conducting their own experiments with the upside-down creatures, and their research has created complications that extend far beyond what anyone anticipated.
The emotional core of their storyline revolves around Joyce's relentless determination to rescue someone she thought was dead, while Hopper faces the psychological aftermath of months of torture and isolation. Their reunion is both triumphant and heartbreaking because you can see how deeply the experience has changed both characters in ways that can't simply be erased by being together again. Back in California, Eleven is struggling with the loss of her powers at the worst possible time. Without her abilities, she's forced to confront her past in ways she never imagined. The government facility sequences reveal disturbing details about her childhood training that make previous glimpses seem almost pleasant by comparison. The experiments she endured weren't just about developing psychokinetic abilities. They were about creating weapons capable of accessing and manipulating alternate dimensions. and the psychological damage inflicted on test subjects was considered an acceptable cost for achieving those goals. Eleven's journey back to her powers requires reliving traumas that nearly destroyed her the first time around.
But the most shocking revelation comes when we learn that 11 wasn't the first successful test subject. There was another child who developed even stronger abilities, someone who ultimately became the very threat now terrorizing Hawkins. The connection between victim and villain creates a moral complexity that forces every character to question their understanding of good and evil in this supernatural conflict. So, there you have it, the absolute madness that was Stranger Things Season 4. We watched our favorite characters get pushed to their breaking points, witnessed revelations that completely rewrote the show's mythology, and experienced losses that genuinely hurt to watch unfold. The Duffer Brothers didn't just raise the stakes this season, they obliterated every safety net we thought these characters had. What makes this season so brilliantly devastating is how it strips away the comfort of predictable outcomes. Previous seasons gave us hope that friendship and determination could overcome any supernatural threat. Season 4 brutally demonstrated that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you can't save everyone. And sometimes the very people you're trying to protect become the source of unimaginable danger. The psychological horror elements combined with the emotional devastation create something that transcends typical supernatural storytelling. We're not just watching kids fight monsters anymore. We're witnessing the systematic destruction of innocence and the terrible cost of survival in a world where nightmare creatures are the least of your problems. And here's the terrifying reality: this isn't over. The season finale makes it crystal clear that everything we've witnessed so far has been preparation for something infinitely worse. Hawkins is about to become ground zero for a conflict that will make previous encounters look like minor inconveniences. The real question isn't whether our heroes can win, it's whether they can survive long enough to even attempt fighting back against forces that have been orchestrating their suffering since the very beginning.